How could you do this to me? How could you bring this into our home? Brandon's voice echoed through our bedroom, his face twisted with rage and disgust. I stood there in my pajamas, my hands shaking, my mind trying to process the words that had just come out of his mouth. What are you talking about? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. He threw a piece of paper at me. It fluttered through the air and landed at my feet. I picked it up with trembling fingers. Medical test results. HIV positive. The name at the top read Brandon Pierce. My husband's name. You gave this to me, Simone, he said, his voice cold and accusatory. You've been cheating on me, haven't you? That's the only explanation. My legs felt weak. The room started spinning. Brandon, I haven't cheated on you. I've never cheated on you. We've been together for 8 years. Married for 5. You're the only man I've been with since we started dating. Liar. He stepped closer and I could see the veins in his neck pulsing. The doctor said this had to come from somewhere. I've been faithful to you. Every single day of our marriage. Tears streamed down my face. This couldn't be happening. This had to be a nightmare. Brandon, I swear to you, I haven't been with anyone else. Maybe there's a mistake. Maybe the test is wrong. The test isn't wrong, Simone. I got tested twice. Both times positive. The doctor asked me about my partner's status. I told him you were clean because that's what I thought. But now I know the truth. I felt like I was drowning. Like the air had been sucked out of the room. If you think I gave this to you, then I need to get tested. Right now. Today. He laughed, but it was a cruel sound with no humor in it. Oh, you'll get tested. And when it comes back positive, you're going to tell me the truth about who you've been sleeping with. There's no one else, I said, my voice breaking. There has never been anyone else. Brandon grabbed his keys from the dresser. I'm going to my brother's place. I can't even look at you right now. When I come back, you better have answers. The door slammed behind him and I collapsed onto the bed. My whole body shook with sobs. 8 years together. 5 years of marriage. And he thought I had betrayed him. He thought I had given him HIV. But I knew the truth in my heart. I had been faithful. Completely faithful. Which meant only one thing. He was lying. I grabbed my phone and called my doctor's office. I need an appointment today. It's an emergency. The receptionist heard the panic in my voice and squeezed me in for an afternoon slot. I spent the next 3 hours in a daze moving through the house like a ghost. Every corner held memories of our life together. The kitchen where we'd cooked dinner side by side. The living room where we'd watched movies cuddled on the couch. The wedding photos on the wall showing us smiling and happy, promising forever to each other. Had it all been a lie? At the doctor's office, I explained the situation to Dr. Roberts, a kind woman who had been my physician for 6 years. She listened without judgment, then ordered a full panel of tests. Simone, I want you to understand something, she said gently. HIV doesn't appear out of nowhere. Someone has to contract it from somewhere. If your husband has it and you don't, that tells a very clear story. But what if I do have it? I asked, my voice small. Then we'll deal with it together. But based on what you're telling me, I have a feeling your test is going to come back negative. The waiting was torture. 3 days of not knowing. 3 days of Brandon staying at his brother's house and sending me angry text messages. 3 days of me replaying every moment of our relationship, looking for signs I had missed. When Dr. Roberts called me back to her office, I could barely breathe. She sat down across from me and handed me the results. Simone, you're negative. Completely negative for HIV and every other STD we tested for. I stared at the paper, at the word negative printed in bold letters next to every test. Relief washed over me, followed immediately by a wave of rage so powerful it made me dizzy. He lied to me, I whispered. He cheated on me and then he tried to blame me for it. Dr. Roberts reached across and squeezed my hand. I'm so sorry you're going through this. But I'm glad you know the truth now. I drove home in a fog of anger and grief. The man I had loved, the man I had built a life with, had betrayed me in the worst possible way. He had cheated on me, contracted HIV from whoever he was sleeping with, and then had the nerve to accuse me of being unfaithful. When I walked into our house, Brandon was sitting on the couch. He stood up when he saw me. Did you get tested? He asked. I pulled the paper from my purse and held it up. I'm negative, Brandon. Completely negative. His face went pale. All the color drained from his cheeks. His mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. So now you're going to tell me the truth, I said, my voice steady despite the storm raging inside me. Who did you sleep with? How long has this been going on? Simone, I can explain. Don't. I held up my hand. Don't you dare try to explain this away. You accused me of cheating. You made me feel like the worst person in the world. And all along it was you. He sank back onto the couch, his head in his hands. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Sorry doesn't fix this, Brandon. Sorry doesn't take back what you did. Sorry doesn't erase the fact that you risked my health, my life, because you couldn't keep your vows. I walked past him toward our bedroom. I needed to think. I needed to figure out what came next. Because one thing was absolutely certain. My marriage was over. I locked myself in the bedroom and sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the negative test results in my hands. The paper felt like proof of my innocence, but it also felt like a death certificate for my marriage. Every happy memory, every shared dream, every promise we'd made to each other had been built on a foundation of lies. Brandon knocked on the door. Simone, please. Let me explain. Go away, I said. I need you to understand. I don't need to understand anything. You cheated on me. That's all there is to understand. The knocking stopped and I heard his footsteps moving away down the hall. I lay back on the bed and closed my eyes, but sleep wouldn't come. My mind was racing with questions. Who was she? How long had this been going on? Had he been careful at all, or had he just not cared about the consequences? Around midnight, I got up and went to the kitchen for water. Brandon was asleep on the couch, his phone on the coffee table next to him. Something inside me, some instinct, told me to look. I picked up his phone. I knew his passcode because we'd never had secrets. At least that's what I thought. I opened his messages and started scrolling. There were texts from a contact labeled G that made my stomach turn. Messages going back months. Over a year, actually. Flirty messages. Explicit messages. Plans to meet up. Photos I couldn't bring myself to look at for more than a second. One message from 3 weeks ago caught my eye. G, I need to tell you something. Please don't be mad. Brandon, what's wrong? G, I went to the doctor. Brandon, I'm positive. For HIV. You need to get tested. Brandon, what? How could you let this happen? G, I'm sorry. I didn't know. Please, we need to talk about this. Brandon, don't contact me again. This is over. I scrolled further and found more messages. G, you can't just abandon me. We've been together for over a year. Brandon, I have a wife. This was a mistake. G, a mistake? You told me you were going to leave her. Brandon, I never said that. Don't contact me again or I'll block you. My hands shook as I scrolled through message after message. A year. He'd been cheating on me for over a year with a woman named Gabrielle. He'd made promises to her. Spent time with her. Built a whole secret relationship while coming home to me every night and pretending everything was fine. And when she told him she was positive for HIV, his first instinct wasn't to tell me, his wife, that I might be at risk. His first instinct was to get tested himself and then blame me for it. I took screenshots of everything. Every single message. Then I put his phone back exactly where I'd found it and went back to the bedroom. I didn't sleep that night. I sat up in bed looking at those screenshots, feeling my heart break into smaller and smaller pieces. By the time the sun came up, I had made my decision. I got dressed in my best suit. Did my makeup carefully. Put on the diamond earrings my grandmother had left me. If I was going to blow up my life, I was going to do it looking strong. Brandon woke up around 7 and found me in the kitchen, drinking coffee. Simone, he started. Can we talk about this? I set down my coffee cup and looked at him. Really looked at him. He looked tired. Guilty. Scared. Good. Her name is Gabrielle, I said calmly. His eyes went wide. How did you? You left your phone out. I read everything. The messages going back over a year. The pictures. The promises you made to her. And the message where she told you she was HIV positive. Brandon's face crumbled. Simone, please. You knew, I said, my voice rising. You knew she was positive, and instead of telling me so I could get tested and protect myself, you got tested first and then tried to blame me for it. You put my life at risk, Brandon. My life. I was scared, he said weakly. I didn't know what to do. You should have told me the truth. Immediately. But instead you accused me of cheating. You made me feel like I was the one who destroyed our marriage. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. It was a moment of panic. I wasn't thinking clearly. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. A moment of panic? Brandon, you carried on an affair for over a year. That's not a moment. That's a choice. A choice you made every single day. It meant nothing, he said desperately. She meant nothing. You're my wife. You're the one I love. If you loved me, you wouldn't have done this. If you loved me, you would have been honest when you found out you were positive instead of trying to destroy my reputation to save your own skin. He reached for me, but I stepped back. Don't touch me. Don't ever touch me again. Simone, please. We can work through this. We can go to counseling. I'll do whatever it takes to fix this. There's nothing to fix, Brandon. We're done. I want you out of this house. Today. This is my house too, he said, a flash of anger crossing his face. Actually, it's not. This house belonged to my grandmother. She left it to me in her will. Your name isn't on the deed. So you need to pack your things and leave. You can't just kick me out. Watch me. I pulled out my phone. I've already called a locksmith. He'll be here in an hour to change all the locks. I suggest you pack quickly. Brandon stared at me like he didn't recognize me. Maybe he didn't. The Simone he knew, the one who had trusted him completely, who had believed every word he said, was gone. She had died the moment I saw that negative test result. What about us? He asked quietly. There is no us anymore. I'll have my lawyer contact you about the divorce. Divorce? He looked shocked, like he hadn't seen this coming. Simone, don't you think that's extreme? I moved closer to him, looked him dead in the eye. You cheated on me for over a year. You contracted HIV from your mistress. And then you tried to blame me for it. What part of that sounds like something we can come back from? He had no answer for that. I left him standing in the kitchen and went to call my best friend Tasha. She answered on the first ring. Simone? What's wrong? You never call this early. I need you, I said, my voice finally breaking. Brandon cheated on me. For over a year. He has HIV and he tried to blame me for it. I'm on my way, Tasha said immediately. Give me 20 minutes. True to her word, Tasha arrived 20 minutes later with coffee, breakfast sandwiches, and a fierce determination in her eyes. Where is he? She asked as soon as she walked in. Upstairs packing. Good. I hope he takes his time so I can tell him exactly what I think of him. We sat at the kitchen table and I told her everything. Every detail. Every message. Every lie. Tasha's face grew darker with each revelation. I never liked him, she said when I finished. I tried to tell myself I was just being overprotective of you, but my gut was right. He's trash. Brandon came downstairs with 2 suitcases. He looked at Tasha and then at me. I'll stay at a hotel until we figure this out, he said. There's nothing to figure out, I replied. My lawyer will be in touch. He opened his mouth to say something else, but Tasha stood up and crossed her arms. I think you've said enough, Brandon. Time to go. He left without another word. The door closed behind him and I finally allowed myself to cry. Big, ugly sobs that shook my whole body. Tasha held me and let me cry until I had no tears left. You're going to get through this, she said firmly. You're strong and you have people who love you. He doesn't get to destroy you. She was right. Brandon had taken enough from me. He wasn't getting my spirit too. The locksmith came and changed all the locks while Tasha and I sat on the porch drinking coffee. It felt symbolic somehow, watching him install new locks that Brandon's keys wouldn't open. Like I was physically locking him out of my life. What are you going to do now? Tasha asked. Call a lawyer. File for divorce. Figure out how to untangle 5 years of marriage. I know a good divorce attorney, Tasha said. Her name is Patricia Monroe. She handled my cousin's divorce last year. Tough as nails. Doesn't let anyone push her clients around. Can you text me her number? Tasha pulled out her phone and sent me the contact information. Done. Call her today. I did. Patricia Monroe's assistant scheduled me for an appointment the next morning. That gave me the rest of the day to start the painful process of telling people what had happened. I called my parents first. My mother answered the phone with her usual cheerful greeting. Simone. How are you, baby? Mom, I need to tell you something. Can you put me on speaker so Dad can hear too? The cheerfulness left her voice. What's wrong? I told them everything. There was silence on the other end of the line when I finished. Then my father spoke, his voice tight with anger. I'm going to kill him. Dad, no. He's not worth it. Baby, are you okay? My mother asked, her voice thick with tears. Do you need us to come over? I'm okay. Tasha is here with me. But I wanted you to know before you heard it from someone else. We'll be there tomorrow, my father said. First thing in the morning. You don't have to. We're coming, my mother interrupted. You're our daughter and you need us. We'll be there. After I hung up, I felt both better and worse. Better because I had told them. Worse because saying it out loud to my parents made it more real somehow. My phone buzzed with a text from a number I didn't recognize. Unknown, this is Gabrielle. We need to talk. I showed the message to Tasha. She grabbed my phone. Don't respond to her, she said firmly. Block her number. How did she even get my number? Brandon probably gave it to her. Or she looked you up online. Either way, you don't owe her a conversation. But I couldn't help my curiosity. I took back my phone and typed a response. Me, what do you want? Gabrielle, I didn't know he was married. Not at first. He told me he was single. Me, when did you find out? Gabrielle, about 6 months ago. I saw a picture on his social media. But he said you were separated. That the divorce was almost final. Me, he lied to both of us. Gabrielle, I'm sorry. For what it's worth, I never wanted to hurt you. I'm scared and alone right now. Brandon won't return my calls. I have HIV and no one to talk to about it. Part of me felt bad for her. She was sick and scared. But a larger part of me was still too angry, too hurt to care. Me, I'm sorry you're going through this. But I can't help you. You destroyed my life too. I blocked her number after that. Tasha was right. I didn't owe Gabrielle anything. We were both victims of Brandon's lies, but that didn't make us friends. It didn't create a bond between us. The rest of the day passed in a blur. I went through the house and gathered everything that belonged to Brandon. His clothes, his shoes, his toiletries, his books. I packed it all into boxes and bags and put them in the garage. If he wanted his stuff, he could come get it with an escort present. That night, I couldn't sleep again. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, my mind spinning with questions. How had I not known? Had there been signs I missed? Times when he came home late with excuses I believed too easily? I thought back over the past year. There had been more business trips than usual. More nights when he said he had to work late. More times when he was on his phone, smiling at messages he said were from coworkers. I had trusted him completely. Never questioned him. Never doubted him. And that trust had been my biggest mistake. Around 3 a.m, my phone rang. It was Brandon. I didn't want to answer, but something made me pick up. What do you want? I can't sleep, he said. His voice sounded rough, like he'd been crying. Simone, I made the biggest mistake of my life. Please, can we talk about this? There's nothing to talk about. I love you. I've always loved you. It was just a stupid mistake. A mistake is forgetting to pick up milk at the store, Brandon. Having an affair for over a year is a choice. Getting HIV and then blaming me for it is evil. I was scared, he said again. I panicked. I know that doesn't excuse it, but I wasn't thinking clearly. Do you know what I keep thinking about? I asked. I keep thinking about all the times we were together. Intimate. And you didn't tell me you'd been with someone else. You didn't tell me I might be at risk. You put my life in danger, Brandon. You could have given me HIV, and you didn't care enough to warn me. I was negative when I was with you. The doctor said I contracted it recently. That doesn't make it better. You still cheated. You still lied. You still tried to destroy my reputation to save your own. I know I messed up. But please, Simone. 5 years of marriage has to count for something. It did count for something. It counted for me being faithful and honest and committed to you. But apparently it didn't count for you. That's not fair. Fair? I laughed bitterly. You want to talk about fair? Is it fair that I'm up at 3 a.m. crying over a man who didn't respect me enough to stay faithful? Is it fair that I have to get retested in 6 months because even though I'm negative now, there's a window period? Is it fair that my whole life has been turned upside down because you couldn't keep your vows? He was quiet for a long moment. I'm sorry, Simone. I'm truly deeply sorry. Sorry doesn't fix this. Sorry doesn't turn back time. Sorry doesn't make me trust you again. So that's it? We're just over? Yes, Brandon. We're over. I'm meeting with a lawyer tomorrow to start divorce proceedings. I'll have her contact you. You're really going to throw away 5 years over one mistake? You threw away 5 years the moment you started sleeping with Gabrielle. I'm just acknowledging what you already destroyed. I hung up before he could respond and blocked his number. Then I blocked him on every social media platform. I deleted our photos together. I removed his email from my contacts. I was erasing him from my life, one step at a time. The next morning, I met with Patricia Monroe. She was exactly as Tasha had described her. Tough, no nonsense, and completely on my side. Tell me everything, she said, pulling out a legal pad. I told her the whole story, showed her the screenshots I'd taken of Brandon's messages with Gabrielle. She took notes and nodded occasionally. This is going to be very straightforward, she said when I finished. He committed adultery. You have proof. The house is in your name only. Do you have joint bank accounts? Yes. 2 checking accounts and a savings account. I'm going to advise you to remove half the funds from the joint accounts and put them in an account in your name only. Today. Right after this meeting. Isn't that illegal? Not if it's your money too. You're married, which means you have equal right to the funds. Once the divorce is filed, the accounts will be frozen anyway. But you need to protect yourself financially. What about his things? Pack them up, put them in storage and send him the bill. You don't have to keep his belongings in your home. I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. Patricia made it all sound manageable. Like I could actually get through this. One more thing, Patricia said. Does Brandon have any financial claims on the house? No. It was my grandmother's house. She left it to me specifically in her will. Brandon has never paid a mortgage payment on it. Perfect. Then he has no claim to it whatsoever. We'll make sure that's clearly stated in the divorce decree. I left Patricia's office feeling lighter than I had in days. I went straight to the bank and withdrew half the money from our joint accounts, just as she'd advised. It felt strange taking money that we'd saved together. But Patricia was right. I needed to protect myself. My parents arrived that afternoon. My mother hugged me for what felt like forever, and my father looked ready to hunt Brandon down. Where is he? My father asked. Staying at a hotel somewhere. I don't know where and I don't care. Good, my father said. Because if I see him, I won't be responsible for my actions. My mother made dinner while Tasha and my father helped me pack up more of Brandon's things. We worked in silence mostly, the only sounds the rustle of boxes and the tape gun. That night, sitting around the dinner table with my parents and Tasha, I felt something I hadn't expected. Oh, yes, my marriage was over. Yes, I'd been betrayed in the worst possible way. But I was surrounded by people who loved me. People who had my back. People who would help me rebuild. Thank you, I said to all of them, for being here. For helping me through this. Your family, Tasha said simply. This is what family does. My mother reached across the table and squeezed my hand. You're going to get through this, baby. You're stronger than you know. She was right. I was strong. Strong enough to walk away from a man who didn't deserve me. Strong enough to start over. Strong enough to build a new life, a better life. Brandon had broken my heart, but he hadn't broken me. And that was something he would never be able to take away. The first week after Brandon left was the hardest. I kept expecting to hear his key in the lock, kept forgetting that he didn't live there anymore. I'd make dinner for 2 out of habit, then stare at the extra plate and remember. Small moments would hit me out of nowhere. A song on the radio we used to dance to. A TV show we watched together. The empty spot where his toothbrush used to be. But I didn't cry as much as I thought I would. Mostly I just felt angry. Tasha had taken a few days off work to stay with me, and her presence was the only thing keeping me sane. She made me eat when I didn't want to. Made me shower when I wanted to stay in bed. Made me laugh when I thought I'd forgotten how. You need to do something for yourself, she said one morning over breakfast. Something that has nothing to do with Brandon or the divorce or any of this mess. Like what? I don't know. What have you always wanted to do but never had time for? I thought about it. Travel, I guess. I've always wanted to see Europe. But Brandon never wanted to go. He said it was a waste of money. Then plan a trip. Not for right now but for when the divorce is final. Give yourself something to look forward to. The idea appealed to me more than I expected. I spent that afternoon researching trips to Paris and Rome and Barcelona. Looking at pictures of the Eiffel Tower and the Colosseum and the Sagrada Familia. Imagining myself walking those streets alone, free, unburdened by a man who didn't appreciate me. My phone rang. It was Patricia. Simone, I filed the divorce papers. Brandon has been served. I expect he'll be calling you soon. I blocked his number. Good. Keep it that way. All communication should go through me now. I've also drafted a restraining order if he tries to contact you directly or show up at your house. Do you think he will? I think men like Brandon don't like losing control. So yes, it's possible. But we'll be ready if he does. Brandon tried to call me 17 times that day. When he couldn't reach me, he tried my parents. My mother told him to lose her number. Then he tried Tasha. He called me, Tasha said, showing me her phone. Wants me to convince you to drop the divorce. What did you say? I told him if he ever contacted me again, I'd post all his business on social media for everyone to see. He hung up real quick after that. I smiled despite myself. Tasha was fierce when it came to protecting the people she loved. The next few weeks passed in a strange routine. I went to work at the graphic design firm where I'd been employed for 3 years. I came home. I avoided places where I might run into Brandon. I met with Patricia regularly to go over divorce proceedings. My coworkers knew something was wrong, but I didn't tell them the details. I just said Brandon and I were separating. Let them draw their own conclusions. But one person noticed I wasn't okay. My boss, Jerome, called me into his office one afternoon. "Simone, I need to ask you something and I want you to be honest with me. Are you okay?" I thought about lying, saying everything was fine. But something about Jerome's genuine concern made me tell the truth. "No, I'm not okay. My husband cheated on me and we're getting divorced." Jerome's face softened. "I'm sorry you're going through that. I went through a divorce 5 years ago. I know how hard it is. I'm trying to keep it together at work. You're doing a good job. But Simone, if you need time off, just say the word. Your mental health is more important than any project." Actually, throwing myself into work has been helping. It gives me something to focus on besides the mess my personal life has become. "I understand that. But the offer stands. If you need anything, let me know." I left his office feeling grateful. It was nice to know I had support at work too. That night, I decided to tackle a project I'd been avoiding, redecorating the bedroom. The space still felt like Brandon's and mine. I needed it to feel like just mine. Tasha came over to help. We stripped the bed of the sheets Brandon had slept on and replaced them with new ones I'd bought. We rearranged the furniture. We took down the wedding photos that had been on the dresser and replaced them with pictures of me and my family and friends. "This looks good," Tasha said, stepping back to admire our work. "Like a new start." She was right. The room looked different. Fresh. Mine. We did the same thing throughout the house over the next few days. Changed the living room layout. Bought new towels for the bathroom. Painted the kitchen a cheerful yellow instead of the boring beige Brandon had insisted on. Every change felt like reclaiming my space. Reclaiming my life. One afternoon, my mother came over with a box. "I found some of your old things in the attic," she said. "Stuff from before you were married. I thought you might want them." Inside the box were photo albums from high school and college. My old journals. Medals from track meets I'd run in. Art projects from when I used to paint. "I'd forgotten about these," I said, pulling out a canvas I'd painted in college. It was abstract, full of bright colors and bold strokes. "You were so talented," my mother said. "You should start painting again." "I don't know. It's been so long." "Exactly. You gave up so much of yourself when you married Brandon. Maybe it's time to get those pieces back." Her words hit me hard because they were true. I had given up so much. My art. My friends. My hobbies. I'd molded myself into what I thought a good wife should be, and in the process I'd lost myself. That weekend, I went to an art supply store and bought paints, brushes, and canvases. I set up a little studio space in the spare bedroom, the one Brandon had used as an office. The first time I picked up a paintbrush, my hand shook. It had been so long. What if I'd lost the ability? What if I wasn't any good anymore? But then I touched brush to canvas and it was like coming home. I painted for hours that day. Lost myself in the colors and the movement. When I finally stepped back, I realized I'd created something I was proud of. It wasn't perfect, but it was mine. I started painting every night after work. Abstracts mostly. Big, emotional pieces that helped me process everything I was feeling. Anger, grief, betrayal, hope. Tasha came over one evening and found me covered in paint, 3 new canvases leaning against the wall. "These are incredible," she said, examining each one. "Simone, you're really talented. It feels good to create something again. You should sell these." I laughed. "No one wants to buy my paintings." "I'm serious. There's a gallery downtown that showcases local artists. You should submit your work." The idea terrified me, but it also excited me. When was the last time I'd done something that scared me? When was the last time I'd put myself out there? "I'll think about it," I said. Meanwhile, the divorce was moving forward. Brandon was fighting for half of everything, including the house. Patricia shut that down quickly, reminding his lawyer that the house was mine through inheritance. Then Brandon tried to claim he deserved half my retirement account and the car I drove, even though the car was in my name only and I'd paid for it myself. "He's grasping at straws," Patricia told me. "His lawyer knows he doesn't have a case, but they're going to try anyway. Some men can't stand the thought of their ex-wives doing better than them. So what do? We fight. And we win." The legal battles were exhausting. Every time I thought we'd settled one issue, Brandon's lawyer would come back with another demand. He wanted spousal support. He wanted half the furniture. He wanted money for the emotional distress the divorce was causing him. "The audacity," Tasha said when I told her. "He cheated on you, gave you HIV scares, and now he wants you to pay him for emotional distress?" Patricia says his lawyer is just doing their job. Asking for everything and hoping something sticks. Well, I hope Patricia destroys him in court. She did. At the first hearing, the judge listened to both sides and quickly saw through Brandon's claims. The judge denied his request for spousal support, denied his claim to the house, and ordered him to pay for his own legal fees. I left the courthouse feeling victorious. Brandon looked defeated. Good. As the weeks turned into months, I settled into my new life. I worked. I painted. I spent time with my parents and Tasha. I started going to therapy to process everything that had happened. My therapist, Dr. Angela, was a kind woman in her 50s who specialized in helping people through divorce. "You're doing really well," she told me after several sessions. "You're processing your emotions in a healthy way. You're not letting this define you." "Some days are harder than others," I admitted. "Sometimes I wake up and forget he's gone. Then I remember and it's like getting punched in the gut all over again." "That's normal. Grief isn't linear. You're going to have good days and bad days. The important thing is that you keep moving forward." I was moving forward. Slowly but surely I was building a new life. A life that belonged to me and no one else. One Saturday, Tasha convinced me to go out with her to a gallery opening downtown. I hadn't been out socially since the separation, and part of me didn't want to go. But Tasha wouldn't take no for an answer. "You can't hide in your house forever," she said. "Plus, this is networking. You never know who you might meet." The gallery was packed with people looking at beautiful artwork. I felt a twinge of envy looking at the paintings on the walls. These artists had been brave enough to put their work out into the world. "You could do this," Tasha whispered, reading my mind. "Your paintings are just as good as these." "Maybe," I said. We were looking at a particular piece, a vibrant abstract in reds and oranges, when a man approached us. "Beautiful, isn't it?" he said. "It is," I agreed. "Are you an artist?" he asked me. "I paint. Just for fun." "You should show your work. The owner of this gallery is always looking for new artists." Tasha elbowed me. "See? I told you." The man introduced himself as Terrence, a local artist who had pieces showing in several galleries around the city. He was friendly and easy to talk to, and for the first time in months I felt like a normal person having a normal conversation. When we left the gallery that night, I felt lighter. Like maybe there was a future for me that didn't involve sitting in my house thinking about Brandon. "You should do it," Tasha said on the drive home. "Submit your work to that gallery." "I don't know if I'm ready." "You'll never be ready if you keep waiting for the perfect moment. Sometimes you just have to jump." She was right. I'd been playing it safe for too long. Waiting for permission. Waiting for someone to tell me I was good enough. It was time to bet on myself. The divorce proceedings dragged on longer than I expected. Every time Patricia and I thought we'd reached a settlement, Brandon's lawyer would come back with new demands. It was exhausting and frustrating, but Patricia kept me grounded. "This is typical," she assured me after yet another rejected settlement offer. "He's trying to wear you down. Make you so tired of fighting that you'll give him what he wants just to be done with it." "I'm not giving him anything," I said firmly. "He destroyed our marriage. He doesn't get to profit from it too. That's the spirit." Brandon's lawyer was arguing that he deserved compensation for the years he'd invested in our marriage. As if marriage was a business transaction. As if loving someone and being faithful were too much to ask without financial reward. Patricia tore that argument apart in court. "Your Honor," she said, standing tall in front of the judge. "My client was faithful throughout the entirety of this marriage. She maintained their home, contributed equally to their finances, and honored her vows. Mr. Pierce, on the other hand, carried on an affair for over a year and contracted HIV due to his infidelity. Then he attempted to blame my client for his diagnosis. The evidence is clear. Text messages, medical records, witness testimony. Mr. Pierce has no grounds for any financial claims beyond what the law requires for an equitable distribution of marital assets." The judge looked over his glasses at Brandon's lawyer. "Does your client have any rebuttal to these allegations?" Brandon's lawyer shuffled papers nervously. "Your Honor, my client admits to making mistakes, but he believes the marriage assets should still be divided equally. The house in question was inherited by Mrs. Pierce from her grandmother and is not a marital asset," the judge said. "That's been established. What other assets are we discussing?" "The vehicles, the furniture, retirement accounts, and savings." Patricia stood up again. "Your Honor, the vehicle Mrs. Pierce drives is titled in her name only and was purchased with money from her personal account before the marriage. Mr. Pierce has his own vehicle. As for furniture, most of it belonged to Mrs. Pierce before the marriage or was purchased by her during the marriage with her personal funds. We have receipts. Retirement accounts were kept separate, and each party contributed to their own. The only joint asset is a savings account with approximately $15,000, which we're willing to split evenly. The judge nodded. That seems reasonable. Mr. Pierce's attorney, do you have documentation showing your client's financial contribution to any of the other assets in question? Brandon's lawyer fumbled with his papers. Not at this time, Your Honor. Then I'm ruling in Mrs. Pierce's favor on all contested items except the joint savings account, which will be split evenly. Mr. Pierce is also responsible for his own legal fees. This court is adjourned. I could have cried with relief. Patricia had won. Brandon wasn't getting the house, the car, or anything else he'd tried to claim. As we left the courthouse, Brandon was standing outside with his lawyer. He looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Regret? Anger? Defeat? Simone, he called out. I kept walking. Simone, please. Can we just talk? Patricia stepped between us. Mr. Pierce, all communication needs to go through me. You know that. I just want to talk to my wife. Soon-to-be ex-wife, I corrected. And no, we have nothing to talk about. I got in Patricia's car and we drove away. I watched Brandon in the side mirror, standing on the courthouse steps looking lost. Part of me felt bad for him. But mostly I just felt free. You did great in there, I told Patricia. You did great. You stood your ground. A lot of people cave under pressure like this. They just want it to be over. But you fought for what was rightfully yours. I couldn't have done it without you. That's what I'm here for. The next few weeks were quieter on the legal front. Brandon seemed to have accepted that he wasn't going to get what he wanted. The divorce was moving toward finalization. But then I got a call from Patricia that changed everything. Simone, I need to tell you something. Gabrielle, the woman Brandon had an affair with, is suing him. For what? For knowingly exposing her to HIV. She's claiming he knew his status and didn't tell her. But he didn't know. Did he? According to the timeline and the medical records we've seen, he contracted HIV from her. But she's claiming the opposite. That he gave it to her. That's not true. I saw the messages. She told him she was positive. I know. And that's exactly what I told her lawyer. But this complicates things. If she's suing Brandon and you're divorcing him, you might get pulled into her lawsuit as a witness. I don't want anything to do with her. I understand. But you may not have a choice. If she subpoenas you, you'll have to testify. The thought of being in the same room as Gabrielle made my stomach turn. She was a reminder of everything Brandon had done. Every lie he'd told. Every promise he'd broken. What do I do? I asked. For now, nothing. Just be aware it might happen. If you get served with a subpoena, call me immediately. I hung up feeling unsettled. Just when I thought I was moving past all this, it pulled me back in. 2 weeks later, the subpoena arrived. I was being called to testify in Gabrielle's lawsuit against Brandon. I called Patricia immediately. I figured this would happen, she said. Don't worry. We'll prepare. You're just going to tell the truth about what you know. You have the text messages from Brandon's phone. That's all the evidence you need. I don't want to see her. I know. But this is part of the process. You'll get through it. The day of the deposition arrived too quickly. I dressed in a simple black suit and met Patricia at her office. We went over my testimony one more time. Just answer the questions honestly, she said. Don't volunteer extra information. Don't let them rattle you. The deposition was held in a conference room at Gabrielle's lawyer's office. When I walked in, Gabrielle was already there. She looked thin and tired. Sick. For a moment I felt sorry for her. Then I remembered she had slept with my husband for over a year. The deposition lasted 2 hours. Gabrielle's lawyer asked me questions about my marriage, about when I found out about the affair, about the HIV test results. I answered everything truthfully, showing them the screenshots I'd taken from Brandon's phone. When the lawyer showed me the messages where Gabrielle told Brandon she was positive, her face went pale. I don't remember sending that, Gabrielle said. But it's from your phone number, her lawyer pointed out. I must have been confused. Maybe I meant something else. It was clear she was lying. She had told Brandon she was positive first. Now she was trying to rewrite history to make herself the victim. After the deposition, Patricia and I walked to our car. You did great, she said. Your testimony completely contradicts her claims. I don't think her lawsuit is going anywhere. Good. I just want this whole thing to be over. It will be soon. The divorce should be finalized within the next month. That night I went home and painted. It was how I process things now. Instead of crying or calling Brandon or dwelling on what could have been, I painted. This piece was different from the others. Darker. More chaotic. It showed the turmoil I was feeling. The anger at being dragged back into Brandon's mess when I was trying so hard to move on. When I finished, I stepped back and looked at it. It was raw and honest and painful. It was also some of my best work. The next day, I did something I'd been thinking about for weeks. I gathered my 5 best paintings, took professional photos of them, and submitted them to the gallery Terrence had mentioned. I didn't expect to hear back. I told myself it was just practice. Just putting myself out there. So when the gallery owner called me 3 days later, I almost didn't answer. "Is this Simone?" a woman's voice asked. "Yes. This is Diane from the Riverside Gallery. I received your submission and I'd love to talk to you about showing your work." My heart nearly stopped. "Really? Really? Your pieces are stunning. Emotional, powerful, unique. I think they'd be perfect for our new artist showcase next month. Are you interested?" "Yes. Absolutely yes." We set up a meeting for later that week to discuss details. When I hung up, I screamed with excitement. Tasha was the first person I called. "Are you serious?" she shrieked. "Simone, that's amazing. I told you your work was good enough. I can't believe this is happening. You deserve this. You deserve all the good things coming your way." That night, I celebrated with my parents and Tasha. We went to my favorite restaurant and they toasted to my success. "I'm so proud of you, baby," my mother said, her eyes shining with tears. "You've been through so much and look at you now. Thriving." "I'm not all the way there yet," I said. "But I'm getting closer." "You're stronger than Brandon ever gave you credit for," my father added. "He thought you'd fall apart without him. Instead, you're succeeding." They were right. I was succeeding. Despite everything Brandon had put me through, despite the betrayal and the pain and the legal battles, I was building something beautiful out of the ruins of my marriage. And that felt like the sweetest victory of all. The morning I met with Diane at the Riverside Gallery, I was more nervous than I'd been in months. I wore a professional dress and carried a portfolio with photos of my paintings, my hands slightly trembling as I walked through the gallery doors. Diane was a woman in her mid-40s with gray streaks in her dark hair and a warm smile. She led me through the gallery, showing me where she envisioned my pieces being displayed. "The new artist showcase happens every 3 months, she explained. "We feature 3 to 5 artists and each gets their own wall. You'd have space for 5 pieces, maybe 6 if they're smaller. We take a 20% commission on sales and you keep the rest." Sales? I hadn't really thought about people actually buying my work. Of course, that's the goal. But even if nothing sells, it's incredible exposure. We get a lot of foot traffic and our openings are well attended. You never know who might see your work. We discussed pricing, framing, and the opening reception. By the time I left the gallery, I had a contract and a date. 4 weeks from now, my art would be on display for the public to see. I called Tasha from the parking lot. "I did it," I said. "I'm going to have an art show." "Simone, that's incredible. We have to celebrate." That night, Tasha took me out for drinks. We sat at a rooftop bar downtown, the city lights spread out below us, and I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time: excitement for the future. "To new beginnings," Tasha said, raising her glass. "To new beginnings," I echoed. As we talked and laughed, I realized how much my life had changed in just a few months. I'd gone from feeling like my world was ending to feeling like it was just beginning. The divorce was almost final. I had my art show coming up. I'd gotten a raise at work after Jerome saw how much extra effort I was putting in. Everything was falling into place. A week later, Patricia called with the news I'd been waiting for. "The divorce is final," she said. "The judge signed the papers this morning. You're officially single." I sat down on my couch, the weight of those words sinking in. I was single. Free. No longer tied to Brandon in any legal way. "Simone? Are you still there?" "I'm here. I'm just processing." "How do you feel?" "Relieved. Set. Free. All of it at once." "That's completely normal. This is a big moment. Take time to feel whatever you need to feel." After I hung up, I sat in the quiet of my living room and let myself cry. Not because I missed Brandon. Not because I regretted leaving. But because mourning was part of healing. I was saying goodbye to the life I'd thought I'd have. The future I'd imagined. The version of myself who had believed in forever with a man who didn't deserve it. When the tears stopped, I felt lighter. Cleaner. Like I'd washed away the last pieces of a life that no longer fit me. I called my parents and told them the news. "How are you doing, baby?" my mother asked. "I'm okay. Actually, I'm better than okay. I'm free." "You are. And now you get to decide what comes next. No one else gets a say in your life anymore." That thought thrilled me. My life was completely my own now. I could do anything, go anywhere, be anyone I wanted to be. The next few weeks flew by as I prepared for the art show. I worked with a framer to get my pieces professionally mounted. I designed invitations and sent them to everyone I knew. I practiced what I'd say if people asked me about my work. Tasha helped me pick out an outfit for the opening, a deep blue dress that made me feel confident and beautiful. "You look amazing," she said when I tried it on. "Brandon is going to hear about this and kick himself for losing you." I don't care what Brandon thinks anymore. And I meant it. I hadn't thought about Brandon in days. Hadn't checked his social media or wondered what he was doing. He'd become irrelevant to my life. The night of the art show opening, I arrived early to help Diane set up. My paintings looked even better on the gallery walls than I'd imagined. Lit by professional lighting, they seemed to come alive. People started arriving at 7. My parents came first, beaming with pride. Tasha brought several friends. Jerome from work showed up with his wife. Even some of my old college friends I hadn't seen in years made the trip. The gallery filled with people, all looking at art, sipping wine, chatting. And they were looking at my paintings. Actually stopping in front of them. Reading the description cards. Taking photos. A man in an expensive suit stood in front of my largest piece for several minutes. Finally, he approached me. "Are you the artist?" he asked. "I am. I'm Simone. These are remarkable. Truly. I'm especially drawn to this one." He gestured to the painting I'd done the night after Gabrielle's deposition. The dark, chaotic one. There's so much emotion in it. Pain but also strength. Resilience. "Thank you. That means a lot. I'd like to purchase it if it's available." I blinked. Someone wanted to buy my painting. My art. "Yes, it's available." "Wonderful. I'll speak with Diane about arrangements." As he walked away, I stood there in shock. I'd sold a painting. My first ever sale. By the end of the night, 3 of my 6 pieces had sold. Diane was thrilled. "This is incredible for a first show," she said. "People are really connecting with your work. I'd love to have you back for another show in 6 months." "Really? Really? You've got something special, Simone. Don't let it go to waste." I left the gallery that night feeling like I was floating. Everything I'd been through, all the pain and heartbreak and struggle, had led me here. To this moment. To this new version of myself who created art and put it out into the world. At work the next week, Jerome called me into his office again. "I heard about your art show," he said. "Congratulations." "Thank you. It was a great night. I also wanted to talk to you about something else. We're opening a new position. Senior designer. It would mean more responsibility, more creative control, and a significant pay increase. I think you'd be perfect for it." I stared at him. "Are you serious?" "Completely. You've been doing excellent work, especially these past few months. You've shown dedication and creativity, and I think you're ready for this next step." Yes. Thank you. I'd love to apply." "No need to apply. The job is yours if you want it." I walked out of his office in a daze. A promotion. More money. More creative freedom. Everything was coming together. That night, I treated myself to dinner at a nice restaurant. I sat alone at a table by the window eating good food and drinking wine, and I wasn't lonely. I was content. Happy even. I thought about where I'd been 6 months ago. Devastated. Broken. Believing my life was over. And now look at me. Successful. Independent. Creating art. Living life on my own terms. Brandon had tried to destroy me. He cheated, lied, blamed me for his mistakes, and then tried to take half of everything I owned. But he'd failed. I was still standing. Stronger than ever. My phone buzzed with a text from Tasha. "Drinks this weekend to celebrate your promotion?" I smiled and typed back, "Absolutely." Life was good. Better than good. Was mine. I was at work when Tasha called me, her voice excited. "Girl, have you seen Brandon's Facebook?" "No. I told you I blocked him everywhere." "Why?" "You need to see this. I'm sending you screenshots." A moment later, my phone buzzed with images. I opened them and saw post after post on Brandon's page. People from our neighborhood, from his work, even some of his own family members calling him out. One post from his cousin read, "Can't believe you did Simone like that. She was nothing but good to you. You should be ashamed." Another from a mutual friend, "Just found out what you did. Disgusting. Don't contact me again." Even his mother had commented, "I raised you better than this. I'm disappointed in you." What happened? I asked Tasha. Word got out. About the cheating. About the HIV. About how you tried to blame Simone. It's all over social media. Someone must have talked. I felt a strange mix of emotions. Part of me felt vindicated. The truth was out there. People knew what he'd done. But another part of me felt bad for him. This was public humiliation on a massive scale. How do you feel about this? Tasha asked. Honestly? I don't know. I mean, he deserves it. But it's still a lot. He brought this on himself. Actions have consequences. She was right. Brandon had made his choices. Now he was facing the results. Over the next few days, I heard more stories through the grapevine. Brandon had been fired from his job. Apparently, someone from HR had seen the social media posts and launched an investigation. They discovered he'd been using company time and resources to communicate with Gabrielle. They also found out about the HIV diagnosis and deemed him a liability. His brother, the one he'd been staying with, kicked him out. Said he couldn't have someone like that around his kids. Even the lawsuit from Gabrielle was heating up. Despite her testimony contradicting the text messages, she was pushing forward with her case. Brandon was facing legal fees he couldn't afford and a reputation that was destroyed. I should have felt happy about his downfall. Instead, I felt nothing. Brandon's problems weren't my problems anymore. His life wasn't my concern. I was too busy living my own life. My new position at work was everything Jerome had promised. I had more creative control over projects. I was managing a small team. My paycheck had increased significantly. I was also working on new paintings for my next show at the gallery. Diane had already scheduled it for 4 months out, and I wanted to have at least 8 pieces ready. These new paintings were different from the ones in my first show. They were brighter, more hopeful. They showed transformation, growth. A caterpillar becoming a butterfly, a seed becoming a flower, darkness giving way to light. I was painting my own journey, my own metamorphosis. One Saturday afternoon, I was at the grocery store when I ran into someone I hadn't expected to see. Brandon's mother. She was standing in the produce section looking at tomatoes. When she saw me, her face crumpled. "Simone," she said softly. "Hello, Mrs. Pierce. I'm so sorry for everything my son did to you. I didn't raise him to be that kind of man. I know you didn't. He's staying with me now. His brother won't let him back in the house. He lost his job. Everything is falling apart for him." I felt a flicker of something. Not pity exactly, but not satisfaction either. "I hope he gets the help he needs," I said carefully. "He asks about you sometimes. Wonders how you're doing." "I'm doing very well, actually." Mrs. Pierce smiled sadly. "I can see that. You look happy, healthy. You're glowing." "Thank you. I just wanted you to know that I'm proud of you. For leaving. For standing up for yourself. My son didn't deserve you." Her words brought tears to my eyes. "That means a lot coming from you. You take care of yourself, Simone. And if you ever need anything, you call me. You'll always be family to me, divorce or not." We hugged and then we went our separate ways. That interaction stayed with me for days. It reminded me that Brandon's actions had hurt more people than just me. His family was dealing with the fallout too. But that wasn't my responsibility to fix. A few weeks later, I got a call from Patricia. "Gabrielle dropped her lawsuit against Brandon," she said. "She did? Why?" "The evidence was too strong against her. The text messages you provided proved she was the one who told him she was positive first. Her lawyer advised her to drop it before it went to trial, and she ended up owing Brandon legal fees." "So it's over?" "It's over. You won't be called to testify again. This chapter is completely closed." I hung up feeling like a weight had been lifted. No more depositions. No more lawyers. No more being dragged into Brandon's mess. I was truly free. That night, I went to dinner with my parents and Tasha to celebrate. "To Simone," my father said, raising his glass, "who came out on top despite everything that was thrown at her." "To Simone," everyone echoed. As we ate and talked and laughed, I realized how blessed I was. Yes, Brandon had hurt me. Yes, the divorce had been painful. But I'd come out of it with more than I'd lost. I had my art, my career, my friends and family, my self-respect. And most importantly, I had myself back. The old Simone, the one who had lost herself in marriage, was gone. In her place was someone stronger, more confident, more sure of who she was and what she deserved. Later that week, I was featured in a local magazine for my art. They did a whole spread about my journey from heartbreak to creative success. The article was titled "Turning Pain into Art: One Woman's Story of Resilience." When it came out, my phone exploded with messages. Old friends congratulating me. Strangers saying my story inspired them. Other women who had been through similar situations thanking me for being open about my experience. One message stood out. It was from a woman named Nicole. "I just read your article. My husband cheated on me too, and I've been struggling with whether to leave. Your story gave me the courage I needed. Thank you for sharing it." I responded immediately, "You deserve better than someone who doesn't respect you. It's hard, but leaving was the best decision I ever made. You're strong enough to do this." She wrote back, "Thank you. I'm meeting with a lawyer tomorrow." That exchange reminded me why I'd agreed to do the article in the first place. Not for attention or sympathy, but because my story might help someone else. Might give another woman the courage to leave a situation that wasn't serving her. If I could do that, if my pain could help someone else avoid or escape their own pain, then it was worth it. Brandon tried to contact me one more time after the article came out. He sent an email to my work address, the only one he had left that I hadn't blocked. "Simone, I saw the article. I'm proud of you for everything you've accomplished. I know I don't have the right to say this, but I'm sorry for everything. I hope one day you can forgive me." I read it once, then deleted it without responding. Forgiveness might come someday. But it wouldn't come from a place of obligation. It would come when I was ready, if I was ever ready. And it would be for me, not for him. For now, I was focused on moving forward. On building the life I deserved. On being the person I was always meant to be. And that person didn't include Brandon in any way. The day the final divorce papers arrived felt surreal. I held the envelope in my hands, knowing what was inside, but somehow still surprised it was real. I opened it carefully and read through the decree. Everything was exactly as Patricia had fought for. The house was mine. My car was mine. My retirement account was mine. We'd split the joint savings account evenly, and Brandon was responsible for his own debts and legal fees. It was over. Officially. Completely. Finally. I called Patricia to thank her one more time. "You fought hard for this," I told her. "I can't thank you enough. You fought hard too, Simone. A lot of clients would have given up or given in just to make it end faster. But you stood your ground. You should be proud." I am. For the first time in a long time, I'm really proud of myself. After I hung up, I sat with the papers for a while. This document represented the end of 8 years of my life. 8 years of love, hope, dreams, and ultimately betrayal. But it also represented a new beginning. A clean slate. I decided to celebrate. Not with sadness or regret, but with joy. Because I had survived. I had made it through the worst period of my life and come out stronger. I called Tasha, my parents, and a few close friends and invited them over for dinner. I cooked my grandmother's famous recipe for chicken and rice, the one she used to make for special occasions. I set the table with my good dishes and lit candles. When everyone arrived, I raised my glass. "Thank you all for being here tonight. This is a celebration. Not of a marriage ending, but of a life beginning. The divorce is final. I'm officially single. And I'm officially free to be whoever I want to be." "To freedom," Tasha said. "To freedom," everyone echoed. We ate and drank and told stories. My father shared embarrassing memories from my childhood that made everyone laugh. Tasha reminded me of the first time we met in college and how we'd been inseparable ever since. My mother got teary-eyed talking about how proud she was of the woman I'd become. It was perfect. Exactly what I needed. After everyone left, I stood in my kitchen and looked around. This house, my grandmother's house, had seen me through so much. It had sheltered me during the worst days. Now it was witnessing my triumph. I walked through each room thinking about all the changes I'd made. The fresh paint. The rearranged furniture. The art on the walls. Every corner held evidence of my new life. In the bedroom, I lay down on the bed and stared at the ceiling. I thought about the night Brandon had accused me of giving him HIV. How devastated I'd felt. How my whole world had crumbled in an instant. If someone had told me then that 6 months later I'd be here divorced, happy, successful, free, I wouldn't have believed them. But here I was. The next morning, I woke up early and went for a run. Something I used to do before I got married but had stopped because Brandon always complained about me leaving him alone in bed. The air was cool and crisp. The sun was just starting to rise. My feet hit the pavement in a steady rhythm and I felt powerful. Strong. Alive. When I got back home, I showered and made myself a good breakfast. Then I sat down at my computer and did something I'd been thinking about for weeks. I booked a trip to Paris. I'd always wanted to go. Brandon had always said it was a waste of money. Now I could do whatever I wanted with my money, and I wanted to see the Eiffel Tower and walk along the Seine and eat croissants in a little cafe. The trip was 2 months away, right after my next art show. Perfect timing. At work, things continued to go well. My team respected me. My projects were successful. Jerome pulled me aside one day to tell me I was being considered for an even bigger promotion in the future. "You've exceeded every expectation," he said. "Keep doing what you're doing and there's no limit to how far you can go here." I left his office feeling like I was walking on air. Everything was falling into place. Everything I'd worked for was paying off. That weekend, I ran into someone I hadn't expected to see. Brandon. I was at a coffee shop downtown working on sketches for new paintings when he walked in. He didn't see me at first. He looked different. Thinner. Tired. Older somehow. Part of me wanted to leave before he noticed me. But another part of me wanted to stay. Wanted him to see me thriving. So I stayed. He got his coffee and turned to leave. That's when he saw me. His face went through several emotions at once. Surprise. Regret. Something that might have been longing. "Simone," he said. "Brandon. Can we talk? Just for a minute?" I considered saying no. Considered walking out. But curiosity got the better of me. "Sure. But just a minute." He sat down across from me, his coffee cup trembling slightly in his hands. "You look good," he said. "Really good. Happy." "I am happy. I heard about your art shows. About your promotion. I'm glad things are working out for you." "Thank you." There was an awkward silence. "I wanted to apologize," he finally said. "Again. For everything. I know I already said it in the email, but I needed to say it to your face. What I did was unforgivable. You didn't deserve any of it." "No, I didn't. I was a coward. And a fool. I threw away the best thing that ever happened to me because I was selfish and stupid." I looked at him, really looked at him, and felt nothing. No anger. No love. No regret. Just nothing. "I hope you've learned from this," I said. "I hope you become a better person." "I'm trying. I'm in therapy. Taking my medication. Trying to rebuild my life." "Good. Everyone deserves a second chance. But not with me. My chapter with you is closed." He nodded, his eyes glistening. "I understand. I just wanted you to know that I'm sorry. And that I hope someday you can forgive me." "Maybe someday," I said. "But not today." He stood up to leave, then paused. "For what it's worth, I'm proud of you. For leaving me. For building this amazing life. You're doing what I should have supported you in doing all along." Then he left. I sat there for a few minutes, processing. That encounter, brief as it was, gave me closure I didn't know I needed. Brandon was sorry. He was suffering consequences. He was trying to do better. But none of that was my concern anymore. I packed up my sketches and went home. I had paintings to finish. A trip to Paris to plan. A life to live. That night, as I worked on a new piece in my studio, I thought about everything I'd been through. The betrayal. The divorce. The struggle to rebuild. And I realized something important. I wouldn't change any of it. Yes, it had been painful. Yes, it had been hard. But it had also made me who I was now. Stronger. Wiser. More sure of myself. If Brandon hadn't cheated, I might have stayed in that marriage forever. Comfortable but not truly happy. Living someone else's dream instead of my own. His betrayal had set me free. It had forced me to rediscover myself. To remember who I was before I became someone's wife. And that person was pretty incredible. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, I stood in front of the mirror in my bedroom, getting ready for my second art show opening. I barely recognized the woman staring back at me. She was confident. Radiant. Alive in a way she hadn't been in years. I put on a deep red dress that hugged my curves and paired it with the gold earrings my grandmother had left me. My natural hair was styled in curls that framed my face. I looked like success. I felt like freedom. Tasha arrived to drive me to the gallery. "Look at you," she said when I opened the door. "You're glowing." "I feel good," I admitted. "Really good." The gallery was already filling with people when we arrived. Diane greeted me with a huge smile. "Simone, your new pieces are incredible. We've already had 3 inquiries about purchases, and the show hasn't even officially started." I walked through the gallery looking at my paintings on the walls. These pieces were so different from my first show. Where those had been dark and emotional, full of pain and processing, these were bright and hopeful. They showed transformation, healing, joy. One painting showed a woman breaking free from chains, her arms raised to the sky. Another depicted a phoenix rising from ashes. My favorite showed a garden in full bloom, vibrant colors everywhere. They told the story of my journey. From devastation to triumph. The gallery filled quickly. More people than my first show. Friends, family, co-workers, and strangers who had heard about my work. Even Jerome came with his wife. A reporter from the local newspaper interviewed me about the show and my artistic process. Your work has such a strong emotional core, she said. Where does that come from? Life experience, I answered honestly. I went through a difficult time and art became my way of processing it. These paintings show the other side of that darkness. The healing and growth that comes after. It's very inspiring. By the end of the night, 6 of my 8 paintings had sold. 6. People were connecting with my work. Seeing themselves in it. Finding hope in it. Diane pulled me aside as the event was winding down. Simone, I have a proposal for you. There's a gallery in New York that's looking for emerging artists to feature. I'd like to recommend you. Are you interested? New York. My heart raced. I know it's a big step, but I think you're ready. Your work deserves a bigger audience. Yes, I said without hesitation. I'm interested. After the show, a group of us went out to celebrate. Tasha, my parents, Jerome, and a few other friends. We took up a whole section of a restaurant, talking and laughing and toasting to success. I'm so proud of you, baby, my mother said, squeezing my hand. Look at everything you've accomplished. I couldn't have done it without all of you, I said, looking around the table at the people who had supported me through everything. My father raised his glass. To Simone, who turned pain into purpose and came out stronger than ever. To Simone. The next week, I met with Diane and the representative from the New York Gallery via video call. They wanted to feature me in a group show in 3 months. It would mean creating new pieces and potentially traveling to New York for the opening. I'm in, I said. Everything was happening so fast, but it felt right. Like pieces of a puzzle falling into place. At work, the promotion Jerome had mentioned came through. I was now creative director, overseeing multiple teams and major projects. The pay increase was significant. The recognition even more so. I celebrated by finally booking that trip to Paris I'd been planning. 2 weeks in France. Staying in a charming hotel in Montmartre. Visiting museums and cafes and all the places I'd dreamed about. I'd be going alone and that didn't scare me. It excited me. The day before my trip, I got my hair and nails done. Bought new clothes and a nice camera. Packed carefully, making sure I had everything I needed. Tasha drove me to the airport. Call me when you land, she said, hugging me tight. And send lots of pictures. I will. Thank you for everything, Tasha. For being there through all of it. That's what best friends are for. Now go have the adventure of a lifetime. The flight to Paris was long but peaceful. I slept, read, sketched ideas for new paintings. When we landed and I stepped out into the Paris airport, I felt like I was stepping into a new chapter of my life. I took a taxi to my hotel and checked into a room with a view of the city. After freshening up, I walked out into the streets of Paris for the first time. It was everything I'd imagined and more. The architecture. The cafes. The way people moved through the streets with such casual elegance. I felt like I was in a dream. For 2 weeks I explored. I visited the Louvre and stood in front of the Mona Lisa. I climbed to the top of the Eiffel Tower and looked out over the entire city. I ate croissants for breakfast and drank wine with dinner. I sketched in parks and took thousands of photos. I met people from all over the world. Had conversations in broken French and English. Laughed with strangers who became temporary friends. And I did it all alone. Confidently. Happily. One evening, I sat at a cafe near the Seine, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. I thought about where I'd been a year ago. Crying in my bedroom. Devastated by Brandon's betrayal. Convinced my life was over. And now here I was. In Paris. Successful. Free. Living the life I'd always dreamed of. I pulled out my phone and took a selfie with the Eiffel Tower in the background. I looked happy. Genuinely, completely happy. I posted it to social media with the caption, "Living my best life." Finally. The comments came flooding in. Friends congratulating me. Family members saying they were proud. People I barely knew telling me I was inspiring them. And one comment from Brandon, "You look amazing. I'm happy for you." I didn't respond. I didn't block him. I just scrolled past it like it meant nothing. Because it did mean nothing. He meant nothing. His opinion of my life didn't matter anymore. When I returned from Paris, I was tan and refreshed and full of new ideas for paintings. I'd filled 2 sketchbooks with drawings and concepts inspired by my trip. Work welcomed me back with open arms. I dove into projects with renewed energy and creativity. The New York Gallery show was coming up, so I spent every evening working on new pieces. I wanted them to capture the feeling of Paris. The romance and beauty and freedom I'd experienced there. 3 months later, I flew to New York for the opening. Diane came with me for support. The gallery was in Soho, sleek and modern. My work was displayed alongside two other emerging artists. But walking through the space, I felt like my paintings held their own. The opening was attended by art collectors, critics, and enthusiasts. People moved through the gallery, studying each piece, discussing them in hushed voices. A woman in her 60s approached me. "Are you Simone?" she asked. "I am. Your work is extraordinary. The emotion in it is palpable. I own a private collection, and I'd like to purchase 2 of your pieces." "Thank you. That means so much." She wasn't the only one. By the end of the night, 5 of my 7 pieces had sold. The gallery owner was thrilled. "You have a real future in this," he told me. "I'd love to work with you again." Flying back home, I felt like I was floating. Everything I'd worked for was coming together. My art was being recognized. My career was thriving. My life was full and rich and entirely my own. I thought about Brandon sometimes. Wondered how he was doing. But those thoughts were fleeting and held no emotion. He was part of my past, but he had no place in my future. My future belonged to me. 1 year after the divorce was finalized, I stood in my living room looking at the invitation in my hand. A mutual friend was getting married and had invited both Brandon and me to the wedding. I debated whether to go. Part of me wanted to avoid the possibility of seeing him. But a larger part of me wanted to go. To show up looking amazing and living my best life. So I RSVP'd yes. I bought a stunning dress for the occasion. Emerald green, fitted perfectly, making me look and feel like $1 million. I got my hair and makeup done professionally. When I looked in the mirror, I saw a woman who was thriving. Tasha came with me to the wedding. She'd been my rock through everything, and I wanted her there for moral support. We arrived at the venue, a beautiful garden with white flowers everywhere. The ceremony was lovely. The bride looked radiant. Love was in the air. During the reception, I was chatting with old friends when I felt someone watching me. I turned and saw Brandon across the room. He looked rough. His suit didn't fit quite right. He'd gained weight. He looked tired and older than his years. He was alone, standing by himself near the bar. When our eyes met, I saw something in his face. Regret. Longing. Loss. He started walking toward me. "Here we go," Tasha muttered beside me. Brandon approached slowly, like he was afraid I might run away. "Simone," he said. "You look incredible." "Thank you. Can we talk? Just for a minute?" I looked at Tasha. She raised an eyebrow, leaving the decision to me. "Sure," I said. 1 minute. We stepped away from the crowd, finding a quiet corner of the garden. "I heard about your success," Brandon said. "The art shows. The promotion. The trip to Paris. I'm genuinely happy for you." "Thank you. I've been trying to get my life together. Started a new job. Still in therapy. Taking care of my health. But it's been hard." "I'm sure it has." He looked down at his shoes. "I think about you all the time. About what we had. What I threw away. Brandon, I know. I know you've moved on. I can see it. You're happy. Successful. Everything I should have supported you in being when we were together. But I was too selfish. Too stupid." "We can't change the past," I said gently. "All we can do is learn from it and try to do better." "I know. I just wanted you to know that I'm sorry. Not because I want you back, I know that's not possible. But because you deserve to hear it. You deserved so much better than what I gave you." I looked at him, really looked at him, and felt something I hadn't expected. Compassion. Not love. Not even friendship. Just compassion for another human being who was struggling. "I hope you find what you're looking for, Brandon. I hope you become the man you're capable of being. But I found what I'm looking for, and it doesn't include you." He nodded, his eyes wet. "I understand. Take care of yourself, Simone." "You too." He walked away and I watched him go. I felt lighter. Like that final conversation had closed a door I hadn't realized was still slightly open. Tasha appeared at my side. "You okay?" "I'm perfect," I said. And I meant it. The rest of the reception was fun. I danced with friends. Caught up with people I hadn't seen in years. Celebrated love and new beginnings. Several people commented on how good I looked, how happy I seemed. "Divorce looks good on you," one friend joked. "Freedom looks good on me," I corrected, and we both laughed. Near the end of the night, a man approached me. He was tall, handsome, well-dressed. He'd been watching me dance. "Hi," he said. "I'm Trevor. I've been trying to work up the courage to ask you to dance all night." I smiled. "Well, here's your chance." We danced to a slow song. He was funny and charming and respectful. When the song ended, he asked for my number. "I'd love to take you to dinner sometime," he said. "If you're interested." I looked at him. really looked. He seemed genuine, kind, worth taking a chance on. Sure, I said and gave him my number. Later, driving home with Tasha, she was practically bouncing in her seat. Did you see Brandon's face when you were dancing with Trevor? He looked like he wanted to die. I laughed. I didn't even notice. I was too busy having fun. That's the energy. Living your life, not worrying about him at all. That's the ultimate revenge. She was right. The ultimate revenge wasn't getting back at Brandon or making him suffer. It was being happy, being successful, living well. That was the victory. The next few months continued the upward trajectory. I went on a few dates with Trevor. He was nice and we had fun together, but I wasn't in a rush to get serious. I was enjoying my independence too much. My art career continued to flourish. I had pieces in 3 different galleries now. I'd been commissioned to create work for a corporate office building. I was making real money doing something I loved. At work, I was being groomed for an executive position. Jerome told me I was one of the most valuable members of the team. My life was full, rich, meaningful. I woke up every morning excited about the day ahead. I went to bed every night grateful for what I had. 1 year to the day after I'd shown Brandon my negative HIV test results, I threw myself a party. Not a pity party. A celebration party. 1 year of freedom, I told my guests. 1 year of living life on my own terms. 1 year of becoming the woman I was always meant to be. Everyone raised their glasses. To Simone. I looked around at the faces of the people I loved. My parents, Tasha. My coworkers. My new friends. People who supported me, uplifted me, celebrated me. This was my life now. This was my victory. Not because I'd destroyed Brandon or gotten revenge or made him suffer, but because I'd saved myself. I'd rebuilt myself. I'd created a life so beautiful and fulfilling that what he'd done to me barely mattered anymore. That night, after everyone left, I sat on my porch with a glass of wine and looked up at the stars. I thought about the woman I'd been a year ago. Broken. Devastated. Convinced her life was over. And I thought about the woman I was now. Strong. Successful. Free. I'd done it. I'd survived the worst betrayal of my life and come out better for it. Brandon had tried to break me. Instead, he'd freed me. And now I was flying. I raised my glass to the sky. Thank you, I whispered, for showing me who I really am. The stars twinkled back at me and I smiled. Life was good. Better than good. Life was mine. And that was the sweetest victory of all.
Unaware she had just inherited the very company signing his $500 million deal that very evening, Elena Mitchell watched from the shadows of the Crescent Hotel ballroom as her husband Marcus commanded the stage in his silver gray suit, basking in applause from Dallas's elite circle. But when she stepped forward to congratulate him, he poured red wine down her dress and called her unworthy to stand among people of his caliber, humiliating her in front of 500 witnesses who gasped at his cruelty. The wife he dismissed as ordinary absorbed every stare, every whisper, every pitying glance with quiet dignity. But what Marcus didn't know was that the company funding his entire deal, the investors applauding his success, the empire he thought he'd built, all of it belonged to the woman now walking away from him in wine-soaked silence. As Elena disappeared through the ballroom doors, she pulled out her phone and made a single call that would terminate the $500 million contract and pull every investment her holding companies had placed in his firm, leaving the man who poured wine on his wife completely unaware that the ground beneath his elite circle was about to shatter. But how long had she known about his affairs, his arrogance, his secret life? Why had a billionaire heiress hidden her power from the husband who now stood smiling on stage, seconds away from losing everything? And what would Marcus do next when he discovered the wife he called unworthy was the very force that could and would destroy him? The chandeliers of the Crescent Hotel blazed like captured stars, casting golden light across marble floors where Dallas's most powerful figures gathered in designer gowns and tailored suits worth more than most people's annual salaries. Elena Mitchell stood near the back wall, her navy dress simple and understated among the sequins and silk, watching her husband of 7 years command the stage with the charisma that had first drawn her to him in that university library a decade ago when they were both hungry students dreaming of futures they couldn't yet imagine. Marcus Mitchell's silver gray suit fit him perfectly, custom tailored to emphasize the physique he maintained with a personal trainer 3 times weekly, and his smile, That brilliant, confident smile captivated the room of 800 guests gathered for what the media had dubbed the deal of the decade. Behind him, projection screens displayed architectural renderings of the luxury development his firm would construct. 50-story towers of glass and steel that would reshape the Dallas skyline and cement his reputation as one of the city's elite real estate developers. This $500 million project represents not just buildings, Marcus declared, his voice resonating through the sound system with practiced polish, but the future of urban luxury living. And I want to thank Meridian Capital Holdings for believing in this vision, for investing in excellence, for recognizing that true success requires both ambition and execution. Elena's fingers tightened around her clutch as applause thundered through the ballroom. Meridian Capital Holdings. The name rolled through the crowd like a blessing, whispered with reverence by men in Rolexes and women dripping in diamonds. None of them knew. Not a single person in this room understood that Meridian Capital Holdings was merely one branch of the trust structure Elena had built over 15 years, starting with the inheritance from her grandmother Margaret Ashford, a woman who taught her that true power was silent, that influence worked best from shadows, and that the moment people knew you held the cards was the moment you'd already lost control of the game. She'd been 23 when grandmother Margaret died, leaving her the Ashford industrial fortune built over 4 generations, along with advice whispered on her deathbed. Hide what you own, Elena. Test the people who claim to love you. Money reveals character the way fire reveals impurities in gold. And you must know what burns away when the flames rise high. So Elena had created layers, holding companies within holding companies, trusts managed by law firms in 3 states, investment vehicles with innocuous names that concealed billions in assets. She'd walk through the world as Marcus's simple wife, the woman who'd supposedly left her graduate program to support his career, the devoted partner who attended his events but never sought spotlight, never demanded recognition, never revealed the empire she quietly commanded from a home office he'd never even bothered to enter. Marcus descended from the stage now, shaking hands with executives from his development team, accepting congratulations from competitors who masked envy behind professional smiles. Elena watched him move through the crowd, observed how his hand lingered on the shoulder of Vanessa Chen, the marketing director who joined his firm 8 months ago, and whose perfume Elena had smelled on his shirts for the past 6 months. She'd known about the affair since March. Known, watched, documented, and waited to see if Marcus would remember the vows he'd made, the promises that once meant everything. Darling, Marcus's voice cut through her thoughts, though his eyes barely met hers as he gestured vaguely in her direction while speaking to a cluster of investors. My wife, Elena, she handles the home front while I build empires. The casual dismissal stung less than it once would have. Elena had grown accustomed to being introduced as an afterthought, the domestic accessory to his ambitions. She stepped forward, intending to offer a brief congratulation before retreating to her usual position on the periphery, but Marcus's expression shifted the moment she entered his circle, shifted into something cold and irritated, as if her presence among his colleagues was an intrusion rather than a right. Marcus, congratulations on, what are you doing? His words came sharp and low, but not low enough. The investors nearest them glanced over, curiosity replacing their polite attention. This is a professional environment, Elena. These are serious people discussing serious business. Heat crept up her neck, but she kept her voice steady. I just wanted to... You wanted to what? Insert yourself into conversations beyond your understanding? Marcus's hand reached for the wine glass a server had just delivered to him. Red wine, dark as blood in the crystal. His eyes held something she'd never seen before. Not just dismissal, but contempt, as if 7 years of marriage had evaporated and left behind only his resentment of the ordinary woman who couldn't match his newfound status. You don't belong in this elite circle, Elena. You never have. You're simply not. The wine hit her chest before her mind could process his movement. Cold liquid soaking through navy fabric and spreading across her torso like a wound blooming in slow motion. Gasps rippled through the ballroom. Conversations died mid-sentence. 800 pairs of eyes turned toward the woman dripping wine onto marble floors, while her husband stood with an empty glass and something like satisfaction flickering across his features before he remembered his audience and reshaped his expression into manufactured shock. "Oh God, I'm sorry, everyone saw." The glass slipped. Marcus's performance began, but Elena wasn't listening anymore. She stood in pooling wine and crystallizing humiliation, feeling the weight of every stare, every whispered speculation, every pitying glance from people who would dissect this moment over expensive brunches for weeks. But beneath the humiliation, beneath the shock and pain, something else crystallized, a cold, perfect clarity she'd been avoiding for months, perhaps years. This was who Marcus had become. This was the man her money had built. Her investments had elevated. Her silent support had enabled to reach heights he believed he'd climbed alone. Elena met his eyes for 3 seconds that stretched like hours, then turned and walked toward the exit with her spine straight and her head high, leaving wet footprints across marble like a trail of evidence. Behind her, Marcus's voice rose in explanation, spinning narratives about accidents and apologies. But she'd already reached the doors, already pulled her phone from her clutch, already dialed the number she'd programmed months ago when she'd first suspected this moment might come. "James," she said quietly to her attorney as she stepped into the hotel's silent corridor, "execute Protocol 7 immediately. Terminate the Meridian contract with Mitchell Development. Pull every investment from every venture he's touched. I want complete withdrawal within 12 hours. "Are you certain, Elena?" James Chen's voice carried appropriate gravity for the decision. "This will destroy him," Elena finished, watching herself in the corridor's gilded mirrors. A woman in a wine-stained dress who'd just decided to reclaim her power. "Yes, I'm certain. Begin now." She ended the call and stood alone in the silence, imagining Marcus on stage still smiling, still accepting congratulations, completely unaware that his elite circle was built on sand and the tide had just turned. Morning sunlight cut through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Elena's minimalist mansion in Highland Park, illuminating white walls and clean lines that Marcus had always called cold because he preferred the ostentation of their previous home, the one she'd quietly sold and he hadn't noticed because the deed had been in her trust's name. She sat at her dining table with coffee steaming beside her laptop, watching her phone light up with confirmation messages from attorneys, financial managers, and board members who'd executed her orders throughout the night with the efficiency of surgeons removing tumors. Meridian contract terminated. Penalties invoiced, venture capital withdrawn, 47 emitters recalled, bridge financing canceled. Mitchell Development credit lines closed. Investor consortium dissolved. Partnerships terminated. Each message represented another support beam removed from the empire Marcus thought he'd built with his charm and vision and relentless networking. Elena had always known the truth. She was the foundation. Every major deal he'd closed in the past 5 years had been possible because her capital, funneled through anonymous investment vehicles and carefully structured partnerships, had provided the credibility and resources he'd needed to attract additional investors. She'd been his secret advantage, the hidden force that made banks trust him, that made developers partner with him, that transformed his ambitions from dreams into reality. Now she was his destruction. Her phone buzzed with a call from Marcus. She declined it, watching his name disappear from her screen. 5 minutes later, another call. Declined. Then text messages began flooding in, starting professional and deteriorating into panic. "Elena, where are you? Need to discuss something urgent. Call me immediately. Business emergency. What did you do? Elena, this isn't funny. Call me now. Everything is falling apart. The investors are pulling out. The contracts are being canceled. What is happening?" She set the phone aside and opened her tablet, pulling up news feeds that were already exploding with the story. Someone had filmed the wine incident. Of course they had. Everyone filmed everything now. And the video had gone viral overnight, accumulating 4 million views and climbing. The headlines competed for the most dramatic framing. Real estate CEO humiliates wife at 500 members signing ceremony. Dallas developers public abuse caught on camera. Wine throwing executive faces investor exodus. But it was the business sections that told the real story, the deeper collapse that had nothing to do with public opinion and everything to do with money flowing away from Marcus Mitchell like water finding exit routes from a sinking ship. Meridian Capital terminates Mitchell development contract. Mysterious investor, flight leaves, luxury project in jeopardy. Mitchell firm faces financial crisis as backing evaporates. Elena clicked through to a Bloomberg article analyzing the mysterious overnight withdrawal of capital from Marcus's ventures. The journalist had done impressive work, tracing some of the investment threads and identifying patterns of anonymous backing that had suddenly, simultaneously vanished. The article stopped short of identifying the source. Elena's legal structures were designed to resist investigation, but it asked the right questions about who'd had both the power and the motivation to orchestrate such comprehensive financial devastation. Her doorbell rang at 7:43 a.m. Elena checked the security camera feed and saw Marcus standing on her doorstep, still wearing his wrinkled suit from last night, his hair disheveled and his expression wild. She'd expected this. Men like Marcus, men who'd grown comfortable with unearned power, always came demanding explanations when their worlds collapsed, as if understanding the mechanism of their destruction would somehow reverse it. She opened the door but didn't step aside to let him enter. "Elena," his voice cracked on her name. "Elena, what's happening? Everything. The investors, the contracts, the partnerships. It's all falling apart. Meridian terminated our agreement. They're demanding penalty payments we can't afford, and every other backer is running like the building's on fire." "Is it?" she asked calmly. "Is it what?" "On fire. Your building. Your empire." Marcus stared at her, confusion and desperation warring in his expression. "This isn't a joke. I'm about to lose everything. The firm will collapse. My reputation is destroyed. That video, someone leaked security footage, and now the whole world thinks accurately," Elena interrupted, "that you publicly humiliated your wife at the moment of your supposed triumph, that you poured wine on a woman who'd supported you for 7 years and called her unworthy of your elite circle." She let each word land with precision. "The world thinks those things because they're true, Marcus. I was drunk. I was stressed. I didn't mean—" He ran hands through his hair, the gesture frantic. "Elena, please. I know I messed up. I know last night was wrong. But this reaction, investors don't just abandon projects overnight because of a domestic incident. Someone is orchestrating this. Someone with serious power and serious grudges, and I need to find out who before—" "Before what?" She tilted her head slightly, studying him. "Before you lose everything you think you built?" "Before I lose everything I did build." His voice rose, attracting attention from a neighbor walking their dog across the street. 10 years of work, Elena. A decade of 17-hour days and constant pressure and fighting for every deal. My entire career is collapsing, and I don't even understand why." "Then perhaps," Elena said softly, "you should have spent less time building empires and more time understanding where the foundation came from." Something in her tone finally penetrated his panic. Marcus stopped his frantic pacing and looked at her, really looked at her, for the first time since he'd arrived. His eyes moved over her calm expression, her composed posture, her complete lack of surprise or concern about his crisis. The recognition came slowly, like a man realizing the ground beneath him wasn't solid after all. "What did you do?" The question emerged barely above a whisper. "I made a phone call," Elena replied. "One phone call, Marcus. That's all it took to remove every piece of support your career was built on." "That's impossible. You don't have—" He struggled to articulate the obvious objection, the one he'd believed for years. "You're not involved in business. You don't have connections to Meridian or any of the investment groups. You can't just—" "Can I?" She pulled her phone from her pocket and held it up, showing him the screen filled with confirmation messages. "Meridian Capital Holdings, Ashford Investment Trust, Highland Development Partners, Crescent Capital Management." She watched his face pale as she recited the names. "What do you think those companies are, Marcus? What do you think has been funding your deals? Providing bridge financing? Attracting additional investors by demonstrating that serious money believed in your projects?" His mouth opened, closed, opened again without sound. Elena could see his mind working, connecting threads he'd never bothered to examine before, following money trails he'd taken for granted. "No," he finally managed. "No, you don't own. You can't." "I inherited them," Elena said, her voice still calm, still measured, delivering information like a professor explaining obvious concepts to a slow student. "From my grandmother, Margaret Ashford. You met her once at our wedding, though you were too busy networking with my uncle to pay her much attention. She left me everything, Marcus. $4 billion in industrial assets, real estate portfolios, and investment vehicles that I've managed and grown for 15 years, while you thought I was simply your simple wife who handled the home front." The color drained from his face entirely. "4 billion? Actually, it's 6 billion now," she corrected. "I've been fairly successful. But you wouldn't know that, would you? Because in 7 years of marriage, you never once asked what I did all day, never wondered why I had my own office, never questioned where the money for our lifestyle came from, because you assumed your income covered it, when in fact your income wouldn't cover the property taxes on this house." Marcus grabbed the doorframe for support. "The house, this house, mine. The cars you drive, mine. The country club membership, mine. The vacation home in Aspen you bragged about purchasing, mine. I bought them through trust structures because I was testing something, Marcus. I was testing whether the man I loved would stay humble and kind even as his career ascended, or whether success would reveal ugliness I'd been naive enough to miss. Elena, last night you answered my question," she continued, and now her voice carried an edge of pain beneath the calm. "You answered it in front of 800 witnesses when you poured wine on your wife and called her unworthy because she didn't match the image of success you wanted to project. So I made my call. I pulled my support, and now you're discovering what you actually built on your own, which is apparently nothing that can stand without the foundation I provided." Marcus slid down the doorframe until he was sitting on her threshold, his expensive suit crumpling against expensive stone. "You destroyed my career," he whispered. "My entire life." "No," Elena corrected, stepping back and beginning to close the door. "You destroyed it yourself, Marcus. I just removed my subsidization of your cruelty. There's a difference." She closed the door on his stunned silence and returned to her coffee, which had gone cold, but still tasted like victory. 3 weeks passed like watching dominoes fall in exquisite slow motion. Elena observed from her position of calm power as Marcus's world disintegrated piece by piece, each collapse documented by media outlets that had turned his humiliation into an ongoing narrative about hubris, entitlement, and the dangers of forgetting where your success actually originated. The business television networks ran segments analyzing the mysterious financial backing that had suddenly abandoned Mitchell Development. Elena watched a panel of experts on CNBC speculating about phantom investors and dark money withdrawal, while images of Marcus, increasingly haggard and desperate, played in background loops. One analyst came close to identifying the Ashford connection, but stopped short, presumably respecting the legal walls Elena's attorneys maintained around her privacy. The real estate industry publications went deeper, interviewing former partners who suddenly remembered concerning details about Marcus's over-leveraged finances, his aggressive borrowing practices, his tendency to overestimate timelines and underestimate costs. Elena recognized the pattern of rats leaving ships, but she also acknowledged truth in their assessments. Without her capital providing cushion and credibility, Marcus's operational weaknesses became glaringly obvious. The emperor had no clothes, and now everyone could see. She spent those weeks in her home office, managing her portfolio and reviewing investment opportunities with the same meticulous attention she'd always given her work. Her holdings stretched across industrial manufacturing, commercial real estate, technology startups, and sustainable energy. A diversified empire that generated returns she immediately funneled into philanthropic initiatives her grandmother had started decades ago. The Ashford Foundation funded literacy programs, women's business development, and scholarship opportunities for first-generation college students who reminded Elena of who she'd been before inheritance transformed her circumstances. That's where Marcus found her on a Thursday afternoon, surrounded by grant applications and foundation reports, when her security system alerted her that someone had forced entry through the garden gate. She watched him approach on camera, No longer in tailored suits, but in jeans and a t-shirt, driving a Toyota instead of his repossessed Mercedes, looking 10 years older than the confident man who'd commanded that ballroom stage less than a month ago. She met him in the foyer, standing at distance. "How did you get in?" "Climb the gate." He lifted his hands, showing scraped palms. "Security didn't stop me. Guess my name isn't on any authorized lists anymore." "It isn't," Elena confirmed. "You're trespassing, Marcus." I know, and I'm sorry, but I needed—" His voice broke. "Elena, I need to understand. I've spent 3 weeks trying to piece together how this—" He gestured vaguely at her mansion, at everything it represented. "You own the company funding my deal. You own the investors, the capital, everything. How long have you been—" "Since before we met," she said quietly. "I inherited when I was 23. We started dating when I was 24. I've owned this power through our entire relationship, Marcus." He absorbed that, swaying slightly. "And you never told me. Would it have mattered?" She asked the question genuinely, curiously. "Would you have loved me more, respected me more, treated me better if you'd known I was wealthy?" Marcus stopped, and she saw understanding dawn in his eyes. "No. I would have wanted your money. I would have used you to build my business faster, bigger. I would have seen you as an asset, not a person." "Exactly." Elena folded her arms. "So I hid what I had and watched who you became when you thought I couldn't offer you anything except emotional support. And for a while, Marcus, for several years, I thought maybe I'd found someone who loved me rather than what I could provide. You were ambitious but kind, driven but generous. You remembered birthdays and asked about my day and made me feel like partnership mattered more than status. When did it change?" His question came hoarse. "Gradually," she admitted, and now her own pain surfaced through professional calm. "So gradually I told myself I was imagining it. You worked later hours. You stopped asking about my interests. You started correcting the way I spoke at dinner parties, embarrassed when I didn't know the right wine terminology or couldn't discuss your colleagues' projects in detail. You introduced me as just my wife instead of by name. You forgot our anniversary twice. You started an affair with Vanessa Chen and didn't bother being discreet about it because you thought I couldn't leave, thought I needed you more than you needed me." Marcus flinched at Vanessa's name. "She's gone now, left the day after everything collapsed, said she couldn't be associated with—" He stopped. "Everyone's gone, Elena. The partners who swore loyalty scattered within 48 hours. The investors who called me brilliant won't return my calls. The properties, they repossessed my cars, froze my accounts. I'm staying in an extended stay motel because the house went into foreclosure and—" His voice broke completely. "I destroyed everything, and I did it by destroying you first." Elena felt unexpected tears prick her eyes but refused to let them fall. "You did." "I'm sorry." He looked at her with something that might have been genuine remorse or might have been desperate manipulation. She couldn't tell anymore. Couldn't trust her ability to read him after years of missing obvious signs. "I'm so sorry, Elena. I know sorry doesn't fix anything, doesn't undo the humiliation or the cruelty or the years I took you for granted. But I'm sorry." "What do you want, Marcus?" She asked the practical question, the one that mattered. "Why are you here? You want me to restore your funding, give you another chance, pretend this never happened?" "I don't know if I want that," he said, and the honesty surprised her. "I don't know if I could face the business world again, knowing everyone saw me at my worst, knowing they're all laughing about the developer who abused his billionaire wife and paid the ultimate price. But I want—" He swallowed hard. "I want you to know that I loved you once, genuinely, before success twisted me into someone I don't recognize. And I want to understand how I missed who you really were, how I spent 7 years married to one of the most powerful women in Dallas and somehow convinced myself you were ordinary. Because I let you," Elena said simply, "because I wanted to see if you could love ordinary, if you could value the person instead of the portfolio. And you couldn't, Marcus. When tested, you chose cruelty over compassion, image over integrity, your elite circle over the woman who'd built the ladder you climbed. He nodded slowly, accepting the verdict. What happens now? Now you learn to rebuild without me, Elena told him, if you can. The bankruptcy proceedings will resolve your debts. You're young enough to start over, though not in real estate development. No one will back you after this. But you could do something else, something smaller, something that doesn't require the kind of capital and connections you lost. You could learn humility, Marcus. You could become the person you were before ambition poisoned you. And you. I continue as I was, she said, managing my holdings, growing the foundation, funding the kind of projects that actually matter. I'll be fine, Marcus. I've always been fine. The question is whether you can learn to be fine without requiring other people's destruction to feel successful. He stood there in her foyer for another long moment, and Elena saw the exact instant he truly understood. Understood not just that he'd lost everything, but that he'd lost it because he'd failed to see value in what he had. The comprehension broke something in his expression, and he turned toward the door without another word, leaving her standing alone in space that suddenly felt vast and empty, despite her billions. The Rosewood Gala 6 months later represented everything Dallas society valued. Wealth displayed with taste, power exercised with discretion, philanthropy performed with appropriate public recognition. Elena arrived in a midnight blue gown that cost more than Marcus's monthly motel rent. Her hair swept into an elegant chignon, diamond earrings catching light as she moved through the grand ballroom where 1,000 guests had gathered to celebrate the city's most influential charitable organizations. She was announced as she entered, Ms. Elena Ashford, chairwoman of Meridian Capital Holdings and president of the Ashford Foundation. And the room's energy shifted perceptibly. People turned, conversations paused, the kind of attention that money and power commanded without requiring aggressive pursuit. In 6 months, Elena had stepped from shadows into deliberate visibility, accepting board positions and speaking engagements, allowing her name and her story, carefully curated and controlled, to reshape public understanding of who she was and always had been. The media had eventually pieced together enough details to construct narrative. Billionaire heiress who'd hidden her identity, husband who'd publicly humiliated her without knowing she owned his future, swift and total financial destruction as consequence of his arrogance. The story had become cautionary tale, discussed in business schools and women's networking groups as example of why you should never underestimate people, and why power held quietly often proved more effective than power displayed loudly. Elena moved through the gala with practiced grace, accepting congratulations on her foundation's recent $100 million initiative to fund women entrepreneurs in underserved communities. She spoke with investors about opportunities in sustainable technology. She laughed at appropriate moments during the dinner speeches and applauded the award recipients with genuine enthusiasm. She was, to external observation, completely composed and utterly successful, the woman who'd reclaimed her power and emerged stronger. She didn't see Marcus until dessert service, when she stepped onto the terrace for air and found him standing near the railing, wearing an ill-fitting suit that suggested rental rather than ownership, staring through glass doors at the celebration he'd once belonged to and could no longer access. Marcus. She said his name before deciding whether to acknowledge him at all. He turned, and she saw someone different than the broken man who'd appeared at her door 6 months ago. Not restored to his former confidence, that had been false construction anyway, but changed in some fundamental way, quieter, humbler, the kind of different that suggested actual transformation rather than strategic performance. Elena, or should I call you Miss Ashford now? A ghost of self-deprecating humor touched his expression. I wasn't planning to approach you. I'm actually here with a client. I'm doing project management consulting now. Small developments, nothing like before. He invited me as his guest. I was about to leave when I saw you and thought. He stopped. I don't know what I thought. You thought you should say something, Elena finished. Congratulations, probably. You're succeeding in ways you would have celebrated if you'd understood who I was. I would have celebrated and immediately tried to use you, Marcus acknowledged. I've had a lot of time to think about who I was, Elena. A lot of empty hours in that motel room, and then in the tiny apartment I could finally afford, working through how I became someone capable of pouring wine on his wife at her moment of trying to support him. Elena studied him, searching for manipulation and finding only tired honesty. And what did you conclude? That success became my identity instead of something I achieved, he said quietly. That I measured my worth by external validation, the size of deals, the status of clients, the envy of competitors. And when you didn't reflect that back to me in ways I wanted, I resented you for it. I thought you diminished me by being ordinary, when in fact you were extraordinary, and I was too blind to see it. The admission hung between them in night air, punctuated by laughter from inside the ballroom. Elena felt something loosen in her chest. Not forgiveness exactly, but perhaps release of the anger she'd carried. I'm glad you understand that now, she said, even if understanding came at tremendous cost. The cost was deserved, Marcus replied. I'm not here asking for anything, Elena. Not reconciliation, not financial help, not even friendship. I just wanted you to know that I see you now. I see what I missed, what I destroyed, what I lost, and I'm sorry. Elena nodded slowly. I believe you, and I hope you build something better this time, Marcus. Something that doesn't require stepping on other people to feel tall. I'm trying, he glanced back at the gala. You belong in there, with those people. I never did, really. I was always pretending, always performing, always terrified someone would realize I didn't have enough substance to justify the spotlight. You could have, Elena told him, surprised to find she meant it. You could have built something real if you'd focused on the work instead of the image, on partnership instead of domination. But you chose differently. I did. Marcus started to say something else, stopped, then continued anyway. Vanessa called last week. She's engaged to someone in tech, someone whose company survived the market downturn. She wanted to, I don't even know what she wanted. Closure? Confirmation that I was still destroyed? I told her I hoped she'd be happy and ended the call. That's progress, Elena said quietly. Maybe. He looked at her directly then, and she saw genuine sorrow in his eyes. I loved you, Elena. I know I failed to show it, failed to honor it, failed you in every way that mattered. But before ambition poisoned everything, I did love you. And I'm sorry I let that love die because I was too shallow to recognize what I had. Elena felt tears threaten, but controlled them, maintaining the composure that had become her armor and her shield. I loved you too, Marcus, which is why your cruelty hurt so much, and why I'm glad we're both moving forward into different futures. He nodded, understanding the dismissal. Congratulations on everything you're building, Elena. The foundation, the investments, the life you're creating. You're doing what I pretended to, actually making difference, actually creating value instead of just extracting it. He left then, walking back through the terrace doors and disappearing into the ballroom crowd before exiting completely, and Elena stood alone watching her reflection in darkened glass. Inside, someone was toasting her foundation's achievements. Outside, the man who'd humiliated her was driving away in a borrowed car toward a small apartment and a modest life that might, if he worked at it, if he genuinely changed, contain more authentic success than anything he'd built on her hidden support. She wiped her eyes carefully, preserving her makeup, and returned to the gala. The chairwoman of Meridian Capital Holdings had speeches to make, donors to thank, initiatives to announce. Elena Ashford had work to do, an empire to manage, and a future to build that would never again depend on making herself small so someone else could feel big. The lesson had cost her marriage and years of hidden potential, but she'd learned it thoroughly. Some people only recognize value after destroying it, and the truest power belonged to those who knew their worth even when standing in shadows, even when wearing wine-stained dresses, even when the world insisted they were ordinary. She was extraordinary. She'd always been, and now everyone knew.